this media is available at satyaish.net/audio. That's satyaish.net/audio. Secret Thoughts, a poem by Ella Wheeler Wilcox, read by Satyaish Chakravarti. We often think it is hardly important what we are thinking in our minds. We can think anything, who cares? This erroneous thinking is what prompts people to do bad things. They think, who's going to know anyway? So they do their wicked deeds. The common man, that is, a man who is not careful to observe life, who is not a careful observer of life, he or she forms his beliefs simply based on what he or she sees or hears or what they're told. That is, on phenomenal appearances and on what passes for common sense by his peer group. By phenomenal experience, I mean what is experienced in the moment. That is, a passing. Whatever is experienced in the moment is a small aspect of a larger phenomena. Therefore, in a common man's consideration, the passing experience, the transient experience, forms the basis of his belief. And the larger phenomena is not at all taken into consideration. That's either because he has issues of survival or livelihood and such pressing upon him, or that he or she is just not interested in anything beyond, just getting by and having some fun and sense enjoyment, basically. Therefore, what the common man sees is that good people in this world suffer, and the ones that abuse their power and wealth to do bad things, these people manipulate the system and then they go scot-free. What's more, these people get richer and more powerful. And so there is no order in the universe. Therefore, the common man is prone to make this error of judgment that all of this religious talk about karma and all that is a bunch of bunk, and that there really is no regulatory authority presiding over this universe. And so we are all kind of left to ourselves to do what we please, and so we better grab what we can and not think about the other person. And this feeds into his belief that having a sufficient amount of self-concept or selfishness is okay, and that no one is watching what we do, much less what we think. The truth is, our thoughts matter. All fruits of actions and of thoughts, they start within. They start in the mind. Whatever you think, even secretly, is being noted. If you repeatedly entertain a thought, it will manifest itself in your life in an outward, tangible form eventually. When it will happen, we cannot say. It may happen immediately, it may happen in 2 minutes, 2 years, or for those who believe in reincarnation, in 2 lifetimes, 200 lifetimes, 2000 lifetimes. We never know. But it will return. We generally think of things we are interested in. That is, we think of things we either like very much, like we may love a person very much, or we may want something, a pleasurable experience, a company of a person. Suppose I love someone, I want to obviously make them love me back. So we keep thinking of someone we like, or we think of things we dislike vehemently. If you hate someone, you're always thinking, how do I get back at them? They did this and this to me. So these are the repetitions that occur in the mind. These are the issues the mind will go back to. Or we also think of issues that we have not yet had a closure on. The mind wants to solve this puzzle. I did everything right. I was devoted to her. I was trying to make the relationship work. Still, she left me. No answer. Nobody sat with you, sat you down, gave you a talk, wrote you a Dear John letter. She just left for the other guy, or she divorced me, or why did this happen to me? Where did I go wrong? At least someone tell me that. So you have these issues. You want closure on issues, and you were not given the closure. That is what the mind dwells on. That type of thing. Each thought leaves upon the mind an impress. This impress carries within it the tendency to regenerate that same thought. It has the capacity to reproduce the same or similar thought. That is why people get into a rut. Thinking sets off a trend. It's just like any other habit, say alcohol or drugs or any other addiction. You take alcohol for the first time under peer pressure, you don't like it. The second time, you take it again. Why did you take it the second time? When it actually hurt you, it gave you a very unpleasant experience the first time. It actually made you very uncomfortable. It was neither good in taste, and the aftermath of taking it was not at all what you can call pleasant. Why did you take it again? Tendency, the impress upon the mind made you do it, because it had the seed to regenerate the hankering of that kind of an experience that you already had. So you take it a couple of times and then you slowly begin to like it. Then that has more seed or more tendencies to do more thoughts and actions of the same kind. So you go back to it again and again and again, and every time now your body is getting acclimated to the quantities of alcohol you're taking, so you need more of it, more of it, more of it, until you reach a time when it is done on autopilot. And that's when the alcohol starts to drink you. Thought works the exact same way. For example, you're under stress. You will begin to worry first about whatever the issue that is causing you stress is, episodically. That is, every now and again when you get a reprieve from any task that you've been assigned, so your mind goes back to being free, it will go and dwell upon that issue that's causing you stress. You keep going back to the subject of worry. You'll keep worrying about the thing that's causing you stress. It could be a bank loan, it could be someone who's bullying you, troubling you, it could be a lawsuit, it could be a potential lawsuit, whatever, it could be anything. Over a long period of time, this stress builds up until it manifests as a habitual tension that now you're not doing this, it's on autopilot. It just becomes a habit. It's not something you do, just something that happens. And then over a longer period of time, this habitual tension becomes an anxiety. And then it physically manifests as heaviness of head, or a migraine, and finally into depression. That is why people commit suicide. They are seeking relief from a pattern of thinking which has got them. It's an automatism that they want someone to help them break out of. Verse 62 and 63 of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita also talk about a related issue which, although is about sense objects and the attachment towards sense objects, but it can be applied over here. The stanza 62 is Dhyayato Vishayan Punsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Vijayate. That means Dhyayato Vishayan Punsaha. Here the discussion is about objects of the senses, but it applies very well to the idea we're talking about, which is thought. It is actually talking about thought. And the implication here is anything that you should not be thinking about, if you even so much as think about it. Dhyayato means just thinking, meditating, contemplating. Dhyayato Vishayan. Vishayan is subject, any topic. Over here it means an object of the senses. So I like someone, I like a girl, I want her to marry me or whatever, then that's a topic or subject. That's the object of the senses. And I when I think of it, when I meditate or contemplate on it, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate, which means just thinking or contemplating on the object of the sense gives rise to attachment. Immediately a bond builds up in the mind because you're repeating the thought again and again, then it becomes a neural pathway. Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. And that attachment, when it is encouraged by repeatedly exercising it through thought, it turns into lust. It turns into a kind of, I gotta have this. An intensified form of attachment, a very intensified desire. Kamat krodho vijayate. And that desire, that lust, gives rise to anger. And by anger, we don't mean that you will shout at someone. It means a permanent anxiety, a restlessness takes place, an agitation in the body takes place. I gotta have that, I'm restless. Now you can't sleep, you can't eat, you're shouting at people, you're restless. That is what happens. And the next verse, verse 63, continues this discussion. Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smritir bhramsar buddhinasho, buddhinasha pranashyati. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger, from that agitation, is born delusion, sammoha. Delusion. You get delusional. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. Once you get delusional, from the delusion arises a destruction of memory. And over here it doesn't mean that you will forget where you live or facts like that. Memory over here means the abstract principles of knowledge on the basis of which you operate. In other words, the belief systems. I just started this discussion saying that the common man believes that the world is unattended to by any regulatory authority and that good people suffer and bad people go scot-free and they flourish. So that's a belief system. That's knowledge for the common man. He operates out of this knowledge. So that sort of knowledge, now that's an example of an erroneous knowledge. That is ignorance. The right knowledge would be, no, everything is superintended by a divine cosmic ruler who is manifest in his creation. And we can see evidence of that. Everything is intelligently designed. Smriti over here does not mean memory. It means this body of knowledge, this body of abstract principles, on the basis of which we take our decisions. Smritir Brahmshar Buddhi Nasho. Once that body of knowledge gets corrupt, then your intellect, which is the intelligence or the discriminative faculty which helps us make decisions, which rests on the knowledge we have. We make decisions based on the principles we believe in, right? Now, since the knowledge itself is corrupt, intellect, the discriminative faculty, goes haywire. Buddhi nasha pranashyati. And once that goes away, no one can stop you from destruction. You self-destruct. You're annihilated. It is guaranteed such a person will destroy himself. Such is the power of thought. So a repeated thought will ultimately incite you into action. So thought, when repeated in the mind, it builds up a force. And that is very difficult to resist. It's much like the autopilot just mentioned. And resisting it is like fighting a torrent. It's very tough at that stage. Once you've entertained the thought repeatedly, and it's almost going to materialize as a force that's going to provoke you to act, then it's very tough to stop it at that time. You can still stop it at that time, but it's very tough. It's hardly 1 in a million people are that capable. If you have some spiritual strength, you can do it. But for most people, it is very tough. It's like the pressure that's built up when you have to go to the toilet. You can't fight that, right? No amount of reasoning or intellect will help you fight that. It's something manifest physically inside you. When you have to go, you just have to go. Similarly with anger. When you can't reason yourself out of anger in the moment that pressure of anger arises, right? That energy, that psychic energy, it's built up inside you. That temper, when it takes you over, you will bang the living daylights out of anyone who tries to talk you out of it at that moment. So thought, eventually, by force, will take you to action if you don't nip it in the bud at the right time. And that action bears fruit. So, all fruits start in the mind. That is why we cannot immediately see their effect when we see people doing bad things. Nothing seemingly outwardly happens to them so far as we can see and tell. So we erroneously jump into the belief, oh, these people go scot-free, nothing happens to them. No, you don't know what's going on inside the mind. Immediately in the mind, something is triggered. It has started. It's a ball that's been set rolling. Very difficult to stop. Now, actions, once the thought materializes and provokes you to act, and you do act, then that action also bears fruit, and it has not just one fruit. It bears fruit in 3 ways. 1. Immediately, the action produces a certain feeling. If you do a good thing, you feel nice. If you do a bad thing, you feel horrible. You feel fearful. So that's the first fruit that the action bears. The second fruit that the action bears is the feeling that the action generates. That feeling fortifies the impress that was made upon the mind earlier, which actually led to this action. This impress or impression is the same kind that caused this action. Or it's the same impression or the same kind of impression that the thought that led to this action created. So for example, someone does a bad thing, they will feel fear. And this fear will further strengthen the fear tendency, the tendency to feel fear, or the fear impression in the mind. As a result, periodically, they will start to fear. And so the fear, every time they fear, they are practicing fear. And there's no volition on their part. They can't stop it. So this fear will grow in the mind. First episodically, then as a habit, as a tension, and then it'll grow to such intensity that it'll become like a mortal terror. Terror. They will be petrified all the time. That's the second result of action. And third, the third fruit that the action bears is the one you and I can see. And the third result finally is that action comes back to you in the form of an event in your life. So if you stole something, for example, as the original action, then the third thing that will happen is some point later, 2 years from now, 200 births from now, you will be stolen from commensurately. So every time you think, you're actually setting off a trend in seed form for all these steps. Therefore, it's very critical a matter to not consider with utmost regard what you think. So then, what are we to do? What's the remedy for all this? How do we break out of this? We remedy it by becoming aware of what we're thinking. By realizing all of this truth that has just been spoken, this principle of what happens, how thought leads to action, how action bears fruit in 3 different ways. By keeping this knowledge again and again in our minds, and then we become aware every time of what we are thinking. And then catching the thoughts as they occur in the mind. Encouraging the good ones and immediately chucking out the bad ones. So when a bad thought comes to your mind, it's your choice. You can engage with it if you like, which will lead to all this terrible stuff that I just spoke about. Or if you want these bad things to not happen, then you nip it in the bud right there. Just remind yourself, hey, this is not a thought I want to think about. And then immediately turn your mind to the exact opposite direction. So if it's someone who hurt you or didn't give you a closure on an issue, then instead of thinking bad about them, immediately force your mind. Now, here is where an effort is required. An immense amount of effort is required. You look for the good qualities in them. Immediately turn your mind to their good qualities. Everybody, no matter how wicked, also has good qualities. You just remind yourself, that person is so innocent, such a good man or woman, whatever. God, please bless him or her. Bless him, please, he's your child, just like I'm your child. He's done something foolishly. I'm sure he'll come to realize it in time. Please bless him with wisdom so he does not do it again to somebody else. And send him love or send her love. If you radiate these feelings immediately, then that's a good thing you've done to yourself. You've just saved yourself from a very dangerous situation. Now, it is not being said here that whatever happened to you is all your fault and it's all your karma, and whoever hurt you, that action of hurting you has no consequence on that person because the universe just wanted to punish you through him. That is not what is being said here. That action of theirs that caused you injury will hurt them back too, in just the same way. That is their new karma. It will give them the same threefold fruit in the fullness of time. When that will happen, how that will happen, is none of our business. So that action of theirs has nothing to do with you. So don't go chasing after it like a dog chases a car. Don't create any new karma by hating them or trying to get back at them or go after them. It's just that your third type of fruit of one of your past actions, which was due to you, was delivered to you through this person. And once again, I should lay emphasis on the word through this person. Who was the one actually delivering it to you? The synchronicity built into the universe, the cosmic intelligence which keeps track of what everyone does. And so the universe, or God, simply synchronized their tendency or sanskara to act out that wicked deed with your third type of fruit of some past action of yours which was due now. So knowing all this, there is no anger when something bad happens to you. All anger vanishes, evaporates. There is no resentment because you know what's happening. There's nothing to suppress. If you don't know this, and someone tells you don't do anything bad to someone who does bad to you, then you have to suppress your resentment. Naturally, there is anger that arises, and you have to suppress that. And that is not good because that anger arose and you're suppressing it and you're just inverting it, you're turning it inwards. So it'll manifest physically as some disease over a long period of time, mental or physical. And that is what we see in a lot of modern societies. They are told by psychologists to not react to whatever happened to them. And they're asked a bunch of bogus questions, but they're not actually given the remedy. So the higher up the echelons you go in a corporate environment, you will see people not reacting. If you speak badly to them, if you give them a visceral reaction, they will abstain from reacting. But that doesn't mean they're saints. They're simply suppressing that anger. And so what happens is actually negative. It has negative consequences on their persona, both physically and mentally. It builds up inside them over time. They're resentful towards everyone. So they have this heightened misanthropy, which they are trying best as they can to conceal. They're actually resentful of everyone. They hate everyone. You can see it in their eyes. And so these people turn very negative. So that is not the answer, and that is not what is being said here. What is being said here, the kind of non-reaction that's being asked of you is very different. It's based on the knowledge of what is happening. Once you have this knowledge that it's my own that's coming back to me, and this person is simply a medium, and what he has done, he's not going to go scot-free, then there is no anger. There is nothing. There's no closure required. You already have the closure. You have the subtext, the undercurrent of what's actually going on in the garb of what seems to be going on in the physical universe. So keeping all this in mind forever, if you just accept all that comes your way, good or bad, and do not react to it, then you are free of that action. That injury or that action will leave you forever. It is done with you. It has given you what it wanted to give you because it was due to you, and it is going away from your life. It actually came here to give you an opportunity to exhaust itself. And so if you did not react, you did the right thing. It will never touch you again, because the universe is a just system. But that action of theirs, that other person who actually hurt you, that is a new karma of theirs, and it is lodged as their karma, and you have nothing to do with it. Rest assured, they will pay for it, in the threefold fruit in the fullness of time. This is what is being said here. This is the synchronicity built into the universe. So immediately turn your mind elsewhere to a good topic that inspires feelings of love, compassion, friendliness, and sympathy for all. Or you may just turn your mind to anything that makes your mind quiet. Say the picture of a god or a deity or a guru you worship. Something holy and sacred, something you hold pristine and holy in your mind. You can turn your attention to that. Or it could simply be a beautiful scenery you saw if you're not religious or spiritually inclined. Anything that, or it could even be something that is a beautiful experience you had. A calm, quiet, neat, clean, pure, serene, beautiful experience that you had. Maybe it was a early evening and you came back from work and you just lay in bed and it was raining and you could hear the patter of the rain and you were very tired, and then you had a nap for about an hour, and then you got up and you felt very refreshed. You got up and had a yogurt or something and you nourished yourself, and then you went back to bed and you could still hear the rain patter and it was silent and beautiful. And then you reminded yourself that there's nothing to do, there's no work to do yet, and maybe it's a Friday night, so you've got 2 days and a whole evening, and you just slept and you kind of lulled yourself into sleep, listening to the rain. That's an experience that might quieten your mind. So such thoughts, serene thoughts, will help you develop a good trend in the mind. That'll set off a trend in seed form. That'll give rise to good sanskaras, good impresses on the mind. And if we repeat this consciously again and again, here is where the effort, conscious effort is required. Constantly repeating good thoughts in the mind will slowly change the constitution of your mind. That will then change your thoughts. You will automatically get good thoughts in response to every situation. It will set up this automatism. If somebody else harms you tomorrow, you will automatically, the first response will be to pray for them or to see the good in them, to feel sorry for them. And then that will materialize into good actions. You will naturally tend to do good. You will feel kindness, compassion. They'll be elevated. These good qualities and feelings will be elevated in your mind. Sympathy and love for everyone, not just your close kith and kin, even for people who hate you and try to harm you, and especially for those people. The love in your heart will increase day by day for everyone. And then that will give you a threefold fruit. First, an inward sense of peace of mind. An unassailable peace. Your mind will be filled with a serene, calm, beautiful peace and joy at all times. And if there was a hurt or a subconscious block of any kind, if you had pain, residual pain from a mishappening in your life, for instance, someone bullied you or left you or hurt you really bad, all that pain will dissolve immediately. All the subconscious blocks will begin to clear immediately, and you will feel it physically in your body. Second, the second fruit you will get, this peace will grow. And it'll provoke you or incite you to do more of the good actions. It will lay a seed for further good that'll give you more. It'll be a propensity that propels you to do more good. You will forget what sadness is. You will not know any sadness or sorrow, fear, nothing. All these will leave you in overnight. They will leave you overnight. Now, it's not that grief will go away from your life or tragedy or some mishappenings will go away from your life. No, not that. But you will not, you may still have, you will have all the ups and downs of life. You will still have the joys and sorrows of life. How bland a life would that be if you didn't have those? But you will not feel the sting that you feel now. What you feel now is a neurotic situation. Like it's completely got you crippled. You're on the treadmill down to the path of depression. That's most people, not everyone. People, generally what they live are cathartic lives. You will not have that. You will escape that orbit. You will be set into a different zone. So you won't have any compulsive, I'm feeling down today. Why are you feeling down? I don't know, I'm just feeling down. You won't have any of that stuff. You will never feel lonely. You will never feel sad. You will never feel sorrow. You won't know what fear is. To a reasonable extent, fear is a good thing for certain situations. I'm not talking complete outrageous stuff like you have a cheetah or a lion standing in front of you, you won't feel fear. No. The psychological fear is what I'm talking about. When there's nothing and you simply start to feel scared, this is what is neurosis. You will not have that neurotic situation. That's what most people live in. They're constantly fearful. I don't know, it was Epictetus or Plotinus or someone who said, we fear more in imagination than in reality. Or we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The implication being that we fear a lot. And the third fruit you will get is that good action will come back in your life as favorable events that will give you prosperity and fulfillment, even in material life. In the Dhammapada, which is also a document of the teachings of Gautama, the Buddha, Siddhartha, it is time and time again said in different ways, across different verses, the same thing. One verse says something to the effect that your good thoughts and actions will help you more than your own father can. They will become like a father to his children. Now, all of this is what Indians have known for centuries as the law of karma. What you've been listening to up until now is a tiny bit from this broad framework that the doctrine of karma is. So this philosophical viewpoint is not something I have arrived at. It's in fact a snippet from the doctrine of karma, and albeit a very tiny, small one. The whole doctrine is quite elaborate. We have many thoughts during a day. Where do they arise from? Who dictates what we will think? This doctrine of karma, which is a part of the Vedanta philosophy, talks about this process in detail. Vedanta tells us that we have subtle bodies which constitute our minds. It even further breaks down the constituents of the mind into smaller 4 subsystems and describing the role of each. The intellect, which is called in Sanskrit the buddhi, which is the discriminative faculty which makes judgments based on the body of knowledge it has. That's one part of the mind. Then there is ahankara, or the sense of I, or the sense of identity. We may call it the ego. We think of ourselves as some individual existence, right? What we think of ourselves is not very clearly available even to our own conscious mind. But still we have this sense of I. There is somebody called I. So that's ahankar. Then the third component of the mind is called chitta, which is a vessel. It's like a vessel in which all the phenomenal passing contents of the mind, like feelings, they arrive, they stay there for some time, they do their thing, and then they leave. So this vessel in which they come is the chitta. And this is not so much in our conscious control. It's working on autopilot. So it happens even when you're sleeping and dreaming, some thoughts will come and play out in the mind, and then they go. Then some more images come, they play out, and then they go. We are not consciously bringing those things into that vessel. And we are not consciously driving those things out of the vessel. This is an automatism that works. We may call it the subconscious mind. But in truth, there is really no real parallel between this and the modern understanding of modern psychology as to the subconscious mind. And then the fourth component of the mind is called manas, which is the mind itself, which is referred to as the conscious sliver of attention that we have, that we use to focus on different things. Vedanta calls that the manas. And then some commentaries and some parts of the Vedantic literature also categorize the memory as the fifth component, smriti. But other commentators say that the chitta includes the memory as well. So one way or another, these are the delineation of the mind, and the Vedanta says that every thought that occurs in the mind leaves an impress upon the mind, in the memory. And this impress is made on the memory, and this impress is called sanskara. And each sanskara is like a seed that bears the capacity to regenerate more thoughts of the same kind that made the sanskara. And those thoughts further deepen the sanskara. They fortify, they buttress the sanskara. And they also leave more sanskaras of their own. But all those sanskaras are of that very nature. Thus, the mind is constantly reshaped by everything we think. And these samskaras, when they become active, they cause a disturbance in the chitta of the mind, in that vessel. What do I mean by when they become active? Well, most of the times, all sanskaras are dormant. They lie dormant, waiting to be triggered. So, for example, someone is, let's say, a lech. Even the most lewd, salacious, lecherous person has some good qualities or good sanskaras in him. So, for example, when he is with his mother or sister or his father and his close kith and kin, he is not thinking those lewd thoughts, right? He's very sober and very cordial at that time. So at that time, the sanskaras of those amorous sanskaras lie dormant in this mind. And as soon as he goes out and he sees a beautiful lady or something, then those sanskaras are triggered, they become active. So that's what is meant here by These sanskaras, when they become active, they cause a vritti, they cause a disturbance in the chitta. They cause a whirlpool, they cause mental defilements. Suddenly they cause thoughts to spring up, feelings to spring out. The vagaries of the mind, or they cause a whirlpool in the mind. And these defilements, they intensify and eventually force us to act. Then the action that we do bears fruit in the three forms we just talked about. One, it generates immediate fruit in the form of either a good feeling or a bad feeling. Bhava. For example, if we do a good thing, like we feed someone who's hungry or who's needy and poor, or we go to some lengths to make some sacrifice of our personal resources like our time, health, money, and we go and help someone who's in need, we feel so good. So good we feel. Or if we do something bad, we feel scared. So this is the first and immediate fruit of any action. But again, as we already spoke about it, the fruits don't simply end here. This fruit also reinvigorates the sanskara. This bhava, that is this feeling that is produced, further fortresses or fortifies or buttresses, strengthens the sanskara. The second fruit, this action that we did leaves upon the mind this sanskara. This new sanskara is of the same nature of the sanskara that brought about this action. So it further propagates and ensures that the host who's bearing this sanskara, that is the mind or the psyche of the person, will act out more of the same kinds of things in the future. This is why we see a person who is only slightly perverted or off the track when he's young. Over time we see he's been to prison and then he's done even worse crimes. And similarly we see a person who was holy as a child. Slowly, if he's kept in that atmosphere, he grows saintly over time and becomes a very, very good person, very holy person. So this happens by heightening or intensifying the first fruit. The fear or good feeling of bliss, as the case may be depending on the action, it is made to grow over time. That's the second fruit. It just keeps growing, so the person keeps feeling more and more nice as the days go by, as he does more of the good stuff. And the bad guy experiences more and more fear, which grows into petrification. He won't show it on his face, but if you're a careful observer, you will notice it on their faces. The face of a good man will be calm, his eyes calm and innocent like those of a child. If you look at the photographs of Swami Vivekananda, his beautiful face like a child, his eyes are so calm. On the other hand, the face of a crook will reveal his pitiable plight, his pitiful plight. No matter how hard he tries to hide it, his eyes are never at rest. His face bears the contortions that emanate from his mind. And there are thousands of places you already know on the internet where you can see such people, successful people. Top jobs they have, but their faces bear the signature of terror, dissatisfaction, the sense of having been betrayed. And there's a little bit of smile on top of that, a fake smile. So the countenance will reveal what's the contents of the mind. This is the second fruit that comes from thought, an ever-growing sense, an ever-increasingly creeping sense of joy or fear. And the third fruit is when the original action actually bears fruit and wants to exhaust itself. That is when it presents itself in the form of a tangible outer circumstance in your life. So for instance, if the original action was that you cheated someone, this third fruit will be that someone will cheat you back. And this is the action that is trying to exhaust itself and relieve you. This is how nature works. It's trying to stop. That's the stop gate. It's culminating there, so that it wants to go away from your life and not trouble you ever again. But what do we do? Out of ignorance, we don't know this stuff. So here's the danger. When someone cheats us, we don't know the backstory, right? We can't connect the dots. So we think that person is a bad person. If they're perceived to be less powerful than us, then we act it out. We hate them. We generate dislike in our heart for them, and we devise or at least think of ways to get back at them. And if they're more powerful than us, then we create this resentment in our hearts, and then that will eventually destroy us. So that's the danger. And then you become a twisted personality with a twisted psychology. And that is, I feel so sad. That's what's happening to most people. You go to Quora and people are cribbing about, oh, I had a narcissistic personality disorder person in my life and this and that. So that's the negative sanskara playing out. And the way to stop it is to think beautiful thoughts. It's very difficult, I know, but that's the only way to get out of this trend. But the payoff is huge. The payoff is massive. Because otherwise you're on very dangerous ground. Now, we have prototypes of this in nature itself. It's just like a tree. An apple tree can be thought of as the mind. The tree has many fruits, that is, apples. Each apple is like a cluster of sanskaras. The apple itself has many seeds. Each seed is a sanskara. Each seed, when planted, has the potential to grow and become a huge apple tree. Each apple tree of that will have thousands of apples further. So each sanskara has the potential to grow into a massive action. That action will generate thousands of the similar kinds of sanskaras into the host. Another prototype to be observed in nature of this very phenomenon can be noted in heredity. We see that the child of a person replicates not only the physical traits of a person but also the mental makeup. So if a parent is constantly anxious, they may be very successful materially or as a businessman, or they may hold an important position at a company. But because they are constantly anxious, they are trouble to be around. So their child will inherit that anxiety. He or she will grow up to be an exact replica of that person. They will be, or they will become, an anxious person. They too will have little or no time for their parent, because the parent had no time for them. See, this is how the cycle of karma gets back to you. And we see even conversely, the parents who invest plenty of time with their children, they cuddle them up, when the children fall down, they go and hug them and they kiss them and they cry with the child, they play with the child, they play games with them, they become a child with their child, their life revolves around the child. We see that when these children grow up, they too are devoted both to their children and to their parents as well. Of course, there are a few cases who are not, but more often than not, such a child will grow up to be devoted to his parents and to his children further. So it's a tree, it's a never-ending cycle. You see, their children will be like that, and their children will be like that, and so on. And thus begins this vicious cycle that we can never get out of. Remember what started it? Just one small thought you thought in the secret chamber of your mind, thinking, who cares? Nobody knows what I'm thinking about. A lot of people have said this quote, I think Lao Tzu, it has also been attributed to Emerson and to a lot many others I don't remember the names of. And it goes something like, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny. It all starts with a thought. And Swami Vivekananda said, good, good, bad, bad, and none escape the law. Of course, he's referring to the law of karma here. So, it is not an opinion. This is not a philosophy. This is not a doctrine. Of course, you're calling it all that for want of better words. It is not a theory. It is a law. Every event of our lives is superintended by God. What we receive as happiness, sorrow, pleasant event, sorrowful event are but the returns of our own past actions. This is a just universe. What we see is a phenomenal experience, which is a part of this much greater phenomena. We are punished by our bad thoughts and not for them. Likewise, we are protected by our good thoughts and not for them. Further, Vedanta tells us that this subtle body, that is, the mind and its constituents, especially the sanskaras, are the cause of rebirth. It is, in fact, the psyche that reincarnates, picking up another physical body based on the sum total of sanskaras or impresses present on it. So, all in all, that's a skim over, an airbrush over the doctrine of karma. The whole doctrine is very elaborate and it requires a great deal of scholarship and responsibility to accurately communicate. So it is extremely important that we watch what we think. Now, at the bottom of the page where this poem is published, that is, if you go to satyaish.net/poetry/secret thoughts and you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will find a list named Related. This has links to other references on this idea. It will help you to look over these. Now the poem. I hold it true that thoughts are things endowed with bodies, breath, and wings, and that we send them forth to fill the world with good results or ill. That which we call our secret thought speeds to the earth's remotest spot and leaves its blessings or its woes like tracks behind it as it goes. It is God's law. Remember it in your still chamber as you sit, with thoughts you would not dare have known, and yet made comrades when alone. These thoughts have life and they will fly and leave their impress by and by, like some marsh breeze whose poisoned breath breathes into homes its fevered breath. And after you've quite forgot or all outgrown some vanished thought, back to your mind to make its home, a dove or raven, it will come. Then let your secret thoughts be fair. They have a vital part and share in shaping worlds and molding fate. God's system is so intricate.